Welcome in, Minnesota United fans. I am Jonathan Harrison alongside Dan Terhaar for week 4 of Loon Talk. Unfortunately, more disappointing news to talk about tonight as your Loons fall once again to Colorado this time. They are now 0-4 on the season. Before we jump into that, Dan Terhaar, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, yeah. Probably better than the club is right now, and tough times in Blaine, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week considering they have 2 games on the docket before a bye week, and then one more game, I believe.
2
and
home
then
games, Jonathan.
2 home
games.
That'll help.
We've
2
never
home
lost
games.
3 in a row at Allianz.
They've never lost twice at Allianz, and they did that this year. So
I'm looking for anything I can find.
Setting all kinds of records this year. Not in the good sense, though.
Not in the good sense, no.
Yeah. You are listening to Loon Talk, as we're going to start calling it the most unofficially official Minnesota United podcast, as Dan Terhaar and myself are the radio crew for Minnesota United broadcasts. So we are technically employed by the team. This instance, for Loon Talk, we are employed by Score North, so we're not employed by the team. So that makes us, I guess, the most unofficially official Loon Talk podcast.
Yeah, officially.
Officially. You just want to jump right into this then?
You know, we could tap dance around it. We could talk about the weather, but we might as well. There it is.
Yeah. 0-4.
0-4 on the season.
Yep.
Honestly, Jonathan, in your wildest dreams, if someone had told you this team would start 0-4, you would have said, oh, nah, not a chance. Right?
No. I wouldn't have imagined they'd gone 0-4.
No, a team could go 2-2. You can go 1-2, and you'd go, yeah, whatever, that happens.
Yeah.
But especially knowing that 2 of the first 4 were at Allianz, you would have said there's no way this team goes 0-4.
Especially with the 2 of the teams they had on the schedule going into the season, you thought one of them's an expansion team and the other one's RSL, who didn't have a good season last year. You thought, yeah, maybe we could do something with this. And then you look at the other factor going into the first game of the season, Seattle, with all the injuries they had, the change of formation they had, you figured you could come out of those first 3 games 3-0.
Maybe, yeah.
And then you go to Colorado, a team that you beat in the playoffs 3-0, and you haven't lost to them in a while. You thought you could go 4-0, and now it's the complete opposite.
4-0 would have been much more believable a month ago than 0-4.
Yeah.
Because of the way that they played in the playoffs last season, getting to the Western Conference Finals, everything, and then the additions they made in the offseason, the emergence of Emmanuel Reynoso and Dane St. Clair, and you had every reason to think that things would be completely different right now. So that's what makes this even more difficult than it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive into this game. Minnesota lose 3-2, but that 2 at the end of that means the Loons finally got on the score sheet, and the first one came off Emmanuel Reynoso, a wonderful free kick by him. It felt like as he was lining up for that kick that you watched him set it up, you watched his kind of stare at the goal and his approach to it. It felt like he was thinking, I'm going to make this just because we need something, and I'm going to start it right here, right now, and he makes it, and it's an unstoppable free kick. William Yarbrough tried as hard as he could, stretched as far as he could, but he could not stop that.
And great confidence in the kid. Mm-hmm. And during the call, Jan Gregush went over, and it really looked to me, and I guessed at the time, and I said, I think Jan's just saying, kid, just put it in the net. Yeah. We need this. And that's what he did. And that's how good he is at set pieces. He is. I think we're going to find out in the next couple of years, as long as he's healthy and he stays here in Minnesota, that we're going to see him be one of the best in the league at set pieces, and that's a great weapon to have. Little disappointed the corner kicks haven't been a little more successful, but it's early in the year yet. So I agree with you 100%. It looked like he just said, you know what, I need to put this ball in the net, and it was a great strike.
Yeah. Before that, though, we got the best basically attacking spell from the club since probably the first half against Seattle, where they were putting chance after chance after chance on the Colorado net. Just nothing was going through, but it felt like the most confident that team has been since the first half in Seattle. They were pressing Colorado. They weren't giving Colorado a chance. Michael Barrios almost had a goal, but that would have been completely against the run of play. The ball was basically in the Colorado penalty area the entire time leading up to that. It was an impressive impressive attacking showing by the team that hasn't scored many goals this season going into that goal.
And the big difference between that and that first half in Seattle, which is pretty sad that we're still looking back at that one-sided loss in Seattle as the benchmark for where you want to be. But the first half, they did play well. The difference on Saturday was they were up 2-0 at halftime. Mm-hmm. And they seemed so confident. Even though they gave up some of the play late in the first half, and there was Colorado put on some pressure and stuff, but you thought, you know what, that's fine. That's Minnesota just wanting to get in the locker room and group for halftime, and then Colorado comes out and they pick up where they left off, and it was I was shocked. I did not expect that there'd be such a drastic swing in play at that point in the match, because they seemed very confident and they played strong for 40 of the 45 minutes in the first half.
Yeah, and we skipped past the Sonny Dotson goal, which was a great bit of passing. Like, there was 3 one-touch passes, or 3 passes there that were just outstanding on that. Ozzy Alonso to Robin Lod, who passed it then to Emmanuel Reynoso, who passed it back to Robin Lod, who, while he was looking the other direction, passes it through 2 Colorado defenders to Sonny Dotson, who was able to just tap it in. But yeah, the end of the half, we mentioned this in the post-match show, that end of the first half, when Colorado had a number of chances, was definitely a signifier for what was about to come. We just didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, hindsight, you see that. Another thing about the pass by Robin Lod is if you watch it again and you watch him, if he takes a look over at Hassani Dotson, even a quick glance, that's going to take that other middle back. I can't remember which guy was where for Colorado at the time, if it was Trusty or what. But if he even glances in Robin Lod's direction, that defender's going to cover him. Or I'm sorry, if he looks in Hassani Dotson's direction.
Yeah.
He didn't even look. And that made both middle backs think that Robin was going to take this to the goal and shoot himself. And that's what freed up Hassani Dotson. Mm-hmm. And a no-look pass was incredible. I mean, the more I watch that play, the more amazing it is, because I'm convinced that if Lod even glances over at Hassani for a split second, that changes what the defense does.
Absolutely.
And those are those little things that people don't see in people's games, particularly someone like Robin or Emmanuel Reynoso. It's those little things that you just go, wow.
Yeah. And rewatching the broadcast, Kendra was talking about this during the match, that those 3 of Reynoso, Lod, and Hassani up front, the attacking 3 for that night, were just so impressive in the middle, because all 3 of them were basically just in the middle of the field. They took out the width. They wanted their width to come from the fullbacks, which we'll talk about that later, but the width, they gave away their width for the 3 guys to basically clump in the middle, and they all 3 knew where each other were at every moment of the first 30 minutes or so of that game, and it worked out magnificently. Unfortunately, it didn't go on for much longer, but when they did play it correctly and play it right, it worked out well.
Yeah. Again, that's why the second half was so shocking. Even after Colorado scored their first goal, you went, okay, all right, wake-up call, right? Here we go. And then that didn't happen. They scored the second goal. And I kept waiting for them to resume as they had in the first half, and they just, at that point, there was so much momentum and so much confidence in the Colorado attack that even with some fresh legs on, with some substitutions, Minnesota couldn't turn it around.
Yeah, and the second half, we can get to the second half now.
Did you watch the whole second half again?
Yeah, I wanted to get notes on it.
I mean, I could see watching the first half, but I can't believe you watched that whole second half again.
I was at home with the 2-month-old, or the 1.5-month-old, who was sleeping at the time, so I'm like, I got nothing better to do. So just watch
you could have cleaned the diaper pail. That'd have been better than watching that second half again.
So the second half, it starts, and it's immediately noticeable. There's no urgency from Minnesota. They're not pressing. They're not pressing up top. They're not harassing the midfield like they were in the first half. Minnesota's midfield lost control of that match in the second half, and it was just a lack of urgency. There was no pressing. There was no basically will to try and get a third goal.
Do you think that was a team sitting on a 2-0 lead?
I don't think that's what Adrian would have wanted, because seeing how he's managed this team in the past, he never wants it just to be 2-0. He always wants more.
Right.
So
normally
I don't know that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the one to sit and hold on to that lead. He wants more. That did not seem like that was something from him. That I don't want to give him an excuse that saying he was elevation, but that has been a problem with a lot of teams in the past going to Colorado. The elevation comes into effect, especially when you're flying in the day of, which they did. They flew in that morning. You don't have enough time to kind of get used to the lack of or the elevation, but I don't know. It just didn't feel like they had any urgency looking at that match again. There was no urgency in that second half.
No, there was a definite change, and I agree with you. It's not normally what we'd see in Adrian Heath is to say, all right, we're up 2-0, let's drop back, let's hold on its lead. But that being said, this is not a normal year. He's and this portion brought to you by Barks Root Beer. This is not a normal.
It's the only good root beer, Dan.
This is not a normal season. So we could say normally Adrian would be, no, let's go get one more, let's go get two more, let's put our sort of boot on their throat and win this. But this is not a normal year, and this was a team desperate for a win. So maybe, the strategy was at halftime, let's hold this on and get out of here, Yeah. So we don't know. We're only speculating at this point. That's why we're unofficially official.
That's why we're the most unofficially official Louis podcast around. We don't know everything. Once Colorado scored that first goal, you could see in both teams' body that everything about the match completely changed. Colorado instantly started pressing all over the field. They were not letting Minnesota have a second's thought on the ball. And then Minnesota, on the other hand, couldn't figure out how to keep the ball. They couldn't figure out how to have a spell of possession at all after that first goal.
Yeah, and you could feel it coming. I mean, when they scored that first goal, it was like, duh. This has been coming since before halftime, and so it was like, okay, and that's why I said my only hope was, okay, they deserve to give up this goal. Colorado's been just dominating them since late in the first half. And my hope was that then all of a sudden this would be like, boom, all right, this is a slap in the face. We got to get back to playing the way we were earlier in the match and take control of the midfield and do what we were doing right. So many things were going right in that first half, and it just didn't happen. I mean, Colorado just kept, snowballing their effort, and they got better and better as the match went on.
Yeah, and then the ball bounces right in front of Dane St. Clair, and he's not able to catch it because of the rain and the short bounce, and then it lands right at the foot of Cole Bassett, who's able to just put it in. Cole Bassett, once he came on, Colorado were completely different. Eunice Nomley, good in his own right, but Cole Bassett, the promising youngster for the Rapids, changed that game. He was all over the field. I want to see how much miles he ran, because there was one moment, I think it was in the 70th minute, he made that cross to Diego Rubio, who headed it in, but he was offside. And then literally the next play, he's on the completely other side of the field, like not even 30 seconds later, forcing a chance on Minnesota. He was impressive in that game. Another guy who was impressive, Jack Price, in the second half, had all day to find and pick passes just because the lack of pressing by Minnesota's midfield. The game-winning goal, it came from a spot. It was a free kick. It came from a spot that Colorado had tried to cross in from previously. Cole Bassett had made that cross to Diego Rubio from basically that same exact spot that Jack Price took that kick and was headed in by Danny Wilson. That's something that they had clearly focused on and practiced going into this game, because they had tried it 2 times before that goal went in. They knew what they were doing with that specific spot, it seemed like. Yeah,
and I think that's part to do with they did their homework. They saw what had worked against Minnesota in the past. And that particular ball from that area has troubled Minnesota's defense for 4 matches, and so I think they knew what they were doing. They knew what had troubled the Minnesota defense in the past, and Yeah, so it was a goal that, if someone gets a decent touch and clears it efficiently, that goal doesn't happen. But they didn't. And, you can't – it's like in basketball. If you give some team 3 or 4 offensive rebounds, they're going to eventually get a basket on you. And you let that ball keep, bouncing around in the 18, eventually someone's going to put it in the net. And they did. And it was – it felt a lot like that Western Conference final out in Seattle. It was like, all we got to do is just finish this thing. Mm-hmm. We take it for granted when teams sit on a lead, and it doesn't make for a lot of times very entertaining soccer. But if a team's good at it, they get a lot of wins that way. And
that's what Austin did last week.
Austin did it very well against Minnesota last week. And I think that, would anybody blame Adrian if he did say at halftime, and I don't know what he told the team at halftime, all right, we're going to shut this thing down. We're going to get out of here and win 2-0. We just need to, because it works for many teams and it's very effective. Teams will do it when they're up 1-0 and they get past the 65th minute,
Especially on the road.
Yeah, especially on the road.
You generally don't have much luck. It's a great strategy, but
it's not even the wrong strategy, except when it doesn't work.
Right.
And then it looks horrible. And so I don't know what the strategy was going into the second half, but it wouldn't have been the wrong call if that's what it was. And so I don't know if it was just Minnesota unable to battle the altitude like you mentioned, if they just couldn't, if Colorado came out and played that well that they couldn't gain any momentum, I don't know. Or if it was a defensive-minded strategy that allowed all those chances. But, at the end of the day, it's on the players to make the plays, whether it's raining or not. And it was slippery and it was wet but Colorado was playing on the same pitch. So
so that's enough about that game. A couple things we learned from it. The offense, they found a way to score again. They brought that back. So hopefully they can continue that. That three-man front worked magnificently. It's just you got to figure out how you can have width with it without sacrificing your defense like they did on Saturday.
But with the way they played defense, I thought that it gave, particularly Roman, it gave him more options to play offensively.
Yeah.
Because you had two midfielders. You had both Will Trapp and Ozzie Alonso sinking back deep to help the defense. And at times, Jan Gregush was back there too. Yeah. So I like the 4-3-3. I hope he stays with that and gives that a chance to see if that'll continue to turn into more goals. But Metanire was a beast again, running up and down that wing. Chase is still struggling.
Hasn't been a good season for him.
Yeah, he's trying. I think he's trying to figure out: am I a defensive back? Am I a guy that's going to specialize in defense? Because he can be very good defensively when he's in position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but when he gets out of position, he's in trouble.
Yeah, the first 2 seasons we saw he does the defense side pretty dang well. Got him a U.S. men's national team call-up. He got on for the U.S. at one time because he was good on the defensive side.
Yep.
Now, he said he wanted to focus, I think it was before the Seattle match, he met with the press, and he said this offseason he focused on the offense. Unfortunately, that hasn't shown well because anytime he's on the offensive side, when he tries to do the cross or the pass, it doesn't go anywhere good. It goes to the other team most of the time.
Yeah, and you want him to work on that part of his game, obviously, but maybe he needs to just step back a little bit and say, all right, I got to make sure I'm taking care of my defense. If the offense comes, great. If it doesn't, I'm still going to play lockdown defense.
Right.
And, maybe that's, but, again, we're picking apart little tiny portions of play. And at the end of the day, this probably isn't about little things anymore. Now it's become, because you're 0-4, it's become a big thing.
Yeah.
And big plays and big things have to happen. Changes in the lineup, players not starting that has started before. Everything's off the table now. And it has to be because you're 0-4.
Yeah. You have to figure out a way to turn this around and get at least a point, hopefully a win, coming up on Wednesday night. Robin Lod being back showed again how good he has been for this team so far this season. He was just in that first half when the Loons were controlling the ball and had actually offensive attacks. He showed just how good he is making those runs, finding spaces, creating with Emmanuel Reynoso. He showed how good he was. But then when the Loons don't have the ball and they can't get the ball up to him, I don't remember many times in the second half, if at all, that we mentioned his name.
Yeah, well, in that second half, we didn't talk about anybody up front because the ball was, in the Minnesota half, virtually
the camera was
most
stuck
of
going
it.
one way.
Yeah, I think the camera was broken; it wouldn't go the other direction. So, but if you're a forward, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
If the midfielders aren't getting possession of the ball and they aren't getting it up to you at least on a ball that's playable or manageable, you're out of the game. And you see sometimes then forwards get desperate and they start dipping back lower and lower trying to get the ball.
Yeah.
Well, then they're so far out of position, they're out of the run. And so, you want to stay disciplined, but at some point, there's desperation takes over discipline, and yeah, you just didn't see anything working well in the second half.
Yeah. So then that brings us to the fact that they are 0-4 again. It also brings us to the fact that the hashtag is back. The hashtag Heath out is back, and personally, I think that's really dumb. The team just went to the Western Conference 5 months ago. Granted, they are 0-4. You'd be stupid to say that the seat isn't warming up. They're 0-4 in a season that there was a lot of expectations for this club. So you'd be stupid to say that seat isn't warming up. But this Heath out movement seems like it's just the same movement that's been trying to get him out for years now, which is just... I saw someone say that this team has never overperformed, which is baffling to me because they got to the Western Conference Final without a striker last year.
Yeah.
Excuse me? What? This team has never overperformed?
They absolutely...
They got 10 wins out of a team that had one of their big signings be a bust 2 games in. And I don't know how this team hasn't overperformed in the past.
That may be one of the biggest... Now that we see they're 0-4,
yeah,
that might make it even more clear that they completely overperformed at the end of last season.
To say that they've never overperformed under Adrian Heath is baffling to me.
Here's the deal with sports fans, and being I've lived in Minnesota almost my whole life, I'll say Minnesota sports fans, they are so quick to pull the trigger on players. And I mean, do you remember when they all wanted Robin Lod run out of town?
Yeah,
he's
now
terrible.
He's one of the best players.
He can't do anything. Here's the deal. Look at all the coaches the Timberwolves and the Wild have had.
Yeah.
Hasn't made a bit of difference.
The Timberwolves are still the worst professional sports organization in this country.
And the Wild are battling close behind them, trying to get that spot. And they change coaches for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know what? At the end of the day, and I get why you fire coaches. I totally get it. The coach's job is to win. And if a coach doesn't win enough, he knows he'll lose his job. Everybody knows he'll lose his job.
Yeah. It's part of the business.
But to think that you could replace your coach, say you replace your coach right now, that this team would all of a sudden turn around and in a month they'd be up at the top of the Western Conference is just silly because it's still the same players.
Yeah.
It's still the same team. Now, if there is a thought that the players are not playing for a coach, then you have to make a change.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the case here. I don't see that with this team.
I haven't seen any indication that the players are done playing for Adrian Heath. And if that does happen, well, you have no choice. You have to move on because you can't fire a team. You can fire a coach. You can fire the general manager, the sporting director. But to do it at this point just doesn't make sense.
Well, and you think about it logistically. Adrian Heath basically runs the entire sporting operation, essentially, because the front office basically essentially reports to him after all the moving they did, 2 years ago now, before last year. So if you get rid of him, you get rid of the entire front office in the middle of the season, which doesn't make sense. I mean, you think about the schedule, it could be a good time because they have 2 games this week, they have a bye week, 1 more game, and then they have a month off for the Gold Cup, which give that month, you give that month to the new head coach, whoever it is, then you have them basically with their own new preseason in the middle of the season. But again, 4 games in to say Heath out is a little bit ridiculous because they, like I said, going into this portion of the show, they just went to the Western Conference Final 6 months ago without an actual striker in their team.
Yeah. So
that they overperformed to get there, you could say.
And it's great. That's about the only thing that social media is useful for is for people to vent. And unfortunately, it seems to me that the negative minded people and the angry people and the hateful people seem to drown out the people that are saying, you know what? Hey, they went to the Western Conference Finals and surprised everybody last year. And, and that's the toughest thing about social media is it can be so dark and so negative. Yeah. And I don't get that because growing up in Minnesota and being disappointed over and over again by Minnesota sports teams, I still get more enjoyment if I'm positive and have a good attitude. Right. And as soon as you get down there in the dirt and you start complaining and hating and stuff, man, that just takes why watch?
Right.
My son got so frustrated with the Vikings last year, and I said, "Why do you watch?" I said, "I watch because there's always a hope. Yeah. It's sports." So, I don't think there's a change coming this week, but then again, it's not my decision. So,
this is a team that he took this team from giving up 70 goals a season to for 2 straight seasons after that. They never dropped below the playoff line. They were always above the playoff line for 2 straight seasons.
Yeah, no, and this was all pretty much, and it wasn't like, oh, that was a surprise. This was pretty much right in track with what Adrian said he wanted to do when he got the job coaching this expansion franchise.
Yeah, he said it was a 3-year plan. The third year they got to the playoffs and looked pretty dang good doing it. The fourth year they got to the Western Conference Final.
Yep. Well, what happens is, fans want to win so badly.
Yeah.
And we do too. We all want to win.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're dealing with a group of fans. By the way, a lot of the fans aren't that way.
No.
It's just the vocal ones are. They want to win so bad that they don't care who they step on, who they roll over, who gets fired, and that's fine. Win at all costs. But at the end of the day, you got to remember they don't make the decisions, and their hashtags aren't going to have any effect on the people making the decision. Well, God, I hope not.
Hopefully not. If so, then we have bigger issues.
That'd be a scary world, wouldn't it? So, you know what? Relax. Oh, I think I just quoted Aaron Rodgers. I'm never going to do that again. Relax.
You mean the future Vikings quarterback? That's a different
podcast.
Oh,
don't even go there. Write that down.
So I can firmly place this podcast in the not Heath out category for now?
No, it wouldn't make it. Okay, and by the way, whenever you want to run a coach off because the team isn't doing what you think they should do, you got to have a replacement.
Yeah.
You don't just magically grow a new coach that does everything that the negative fans want.
Yeah, and I saw some hilarious suggestions for the new coach. Jurgen Klinsmann, the guy who's basically just been a professional grifter for the past 5 years after he lost the U.S. men's national team job. He basically ruined Hertha Berlin for a season and a half. I saw David Wagner, the guy who started Schalke's demise to having one of the worst seasons in Bundesliga history. Thierry Henry, who left the Montreal job 2 weeks before the season started because he wanted to be home with his family during the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, he's going to come back to America, right? Sorry, some of these suggestions are weird and just mind-blowing. They're not going to pay Jurgen Klinsmann to come here the amount of money that he's going to want and the amount of control he's going to want and trust him to do a good job and not... No. Yeah. He lasted a month at Hertha Berlin before he quit.
That's what we need. We need a quitter.
You're right. You need a guy who's going to come in, get paid $4 million, and then quit after a month. That's a good idea. After you just gave 5 years to Adrian Heath. Makes sense.
Let's move on. It's getting sweaty in here.
I'm getting upset. Let's move on to look around the league.
I'm all worked up. Let's talk about somebody else's problems. Who else has got problems?
Columbus fans do now.
Why?
Their ownership, after saving them from moving to Austin, have now rebranded the club. They are no longer Columbus Crew. They are Columbus Soccer Club, and the fans are not happy because they got rid of the name that's been there since 1996.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. And they got rid of the badge, which was a pretty good badge. They got rid of it for a not so good one. It's not as bad as Chicago's, but it's not as good as the one they had just had that they had just rebranded to.
Well, okay, now a lot of times when sports teams rebrand, whether that rebranding is a name change or a logo change or just color changes, it's about selling merchandise. It's about, just starting clean. I don't understand what this is a team that's very successful right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I have no idea.
And I guess I always kind of liked the name Columbus Crew.
It's a great name. They went to a more bland European name. Like part of the joy or part of the
should we be
fun
FC Columbus or Columbus FC?
CF Montreal, Club de Foot Montreal. You want to go to that one?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's
come on.
Part of the joy of MLS is having this weird, quirky naming that we have in this league. Like,
Crew
Columbus Crew is a great name. New England Revolution, great name.
Indicate a team.
Yeah.
We're a crew. We're a team. We're working together. Crew can be the fans. I'm kind of disappointed in that too. I saw the new logo too, and that does nothing for me. So
right, the old logo is great. I don't understand why you would change it in the for one in the middle of the season, two at all, because it was fantastic. That logo basically stood for the club staying in Columbus. What the fans fought for. The fans basically stopped a rich owner from moving the team. He was forced to basically start an expansion club so he could get his wish, which I don't think I've ever heard of a group of fans being able to keep control or keep their team in town after their owner was dead set on moving them. I can't remember that in American sports. Can you?
No, normally they
normally just moves.
They've got to build them a stadium or something to get them to stay. Usually there's got to be some big. I mean,
eventually
carrot.
They did build a new stadium, but they had to get a new owner because Anthony Precourt just wanted Austin FC, and it's a thing now.
Yeah.
Outside of that, looking at the rest of the league, Seattle win yet again, this time in a wild 2-1 win. This penalty kick sequence is just wild. Diego Valeri, who doesn't miss these things very often, steps up, kicks the first one, gets stopped by Stefan Frei, who made his 1,000th save of his career in the MLS. But then it was called back because he stepped off the line too early. So they retake it again. Diego Valeri steps up once again, kicks it, it goes off the bar, goes right back to him, and he boots it back into the net. But because Stefan Frei didn't touch it, it's a dead ball after that. So Seattle end up getting the 2-1 win.
I watched that this afternoon, and I watched it about 3 times. I was like, wow.
How lucky did Seattle get there?
You can't make this stuff up, can you?
No. And Seattle just keep on rolling.
Yeah.
When we all thought they were dead in the water, when we thought they were just going to have a poor season, Brian Schmetzer pulls it out again.
Yeah, we got them started too.
So like 2 years or 3 years ago when we started every team's hot run.
Yeah, let's not talk about
that. More games. LAFC back to their losing ways in the LA Derby. I'm never calling it what everybody else calls it. I don't like that name.
What?
El Tráfico. I think it's a dumb name.
El Tráfico? Okay.
Yeah. It's a playoff El Clásico, which is Real Madrid, Barcelona. I don't know. I'm not a fan of El Tráfico. I'll always call it the LA Derby.
Rival. It's an inner city rivalry, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Chicharito, my guy, scores the opening goal in that one, gets his first LA Derby goal. Other games, Sporting Kansas City come back from a goal down to pull out their home win against Austin FC. Sporting Kansas City really haven't returned to normal, I guess, in a couple of years now. They got to the playoffs last year. Minnesota beat them. And then they haven't really been on a good run this season.
No, they're kind of up and down a little bit, but it's early. I think they're going to be okay.
Austin proving once again just how tough they are. Like, they go into Sporting Kansas City, a generally tough place to go into, get the 1-0 lead, and then unfortunately they go a man down and then give up 2 goals. But
they look
Austin
like
FC
a team,
proving how good they are.
They look like an expansion team that has 100% bought into what their coach wants them to do, playing and dedicating themselves to a certain game plan, and that's what you get when you do that. You know.
And then Minnesota's next opponent, Vancouver, secure 2-0 win against Montreal. The Whitecaps are 2-1-1 on the season. The Loons face them on Wednesday night. Other look around the league news. Sunday featured 3 MLS games on broadcast television, including an ABC doubleheader. So with the NWSL Challenge Cup final on CBS on Saturday, NBC broadcasting Manchester City and Chelsea on Saturday. It's the first time we've had all major networks broadcast soccer in one weekend.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Did you think we'd ever get to this point in America where soccer's being broadcast so prevalently on the national channels?
You know, being someone that was around for the NASL run with the Minnesota Kicks, and once that, died down, I would have said, well, maybe it won't happen. Because at that time, in the late 70s, early 80s, that was the talk.
Yeah.
This is going to grow. This is going to explode. Yeah. And soccer is going to grow in this country. It's going to get bigger in every season, and the league's going to expand. And then it went, okay, well, never mind. That didn't work. So, and after that, you went through, and yes, there's always been professional soccer, but it was quiet. It was almost like it was a little dormant for a while. And then, the MLS is comes back, and they come back strong, and here we are. So, yeah, I don't know if after the NASL, wasn't able to succeed doing basically what the MLS is doing right now, trying to do. They didn't have the teams with the money and the stadiums and the infrastructure they do now. It was a different time. I didn't know if it would ever happen, but that's huge. I didn't realize that.
All right, so should we get to it? Should we get to write that down?
Yes.
All right, let's bring up the rules here. If you forgot, you are listening to Loon Talk, Score North's Minnesota United centric podcast. We talk all things Loons and MLS right here on anywhere you find your podcast, right here on Loon Talk, anywhere you find your podcast, as well as Score North's YouTube channel. You can see our pretty faces over on YouTube if you want to. You can also see the rules that we now have popped up. Write that down. We've got 4 rules to this. You make 3 predictions, 3 soccer-related predictions. At least one of them has to be Minnesota United related. We will keep track of the correct predictions. We'll call them goals throughout the year, and the most goals at the end of the year wins the Golden Boot. So, quick accountability session.
It's the boot.
Nothing for you this week, Dan.
What?
Nothing. I think you had a couple things that were mainly...
About the Loons winning?
You had Loons would score a goal from a true number 9 in the month of May. That hasn't happened yet. Wouldn't call Reynoso or Dotson true number 9s. The Loons will make the playoffs in 2021. And Chicharito will not be the leading goal scorer this season. That's a direct one against me.
I was banking some points for later on in the year, so I'm okay with that then. I still feel pretty good about those 3, so...
And then I had a couple things come off the board. I went back and looked. It did not seem like they had all right at some point during the Minnesota United Austin FC broadcast.
Because it wasn't all right. No.
Give me 1 second. We're going to take a pause here. I got to go blow my nose. And John said the Loons will keep a clean sheet this weekend. And then he had Man City losing in the Champions League. So, man, crazy. Allergies kicked in after I mowed the grass on Saturday and just been killing me ever since.
They have pills for that.
Yeah, I know. And my nose is just running like crazy, and I'm like, the camera's probably going to see this and it'll look gross.
Snot bubbles. Who's the dude with the snot bubbles on YouTube? All right, I ran down the fact that you picked a clean sheet, and that sucked. And then
I was just going to start the whole write that down segment over. If you wanted to do that.
Okay, take 2.
Yeah. I'll just have Declan do some editing. Sorry, Declan. All right. Timestamp that one, 39 minutes. All right. So this is write that down here on Loon Talk. We make 3 predictions, at least one of them Minnesota United related. We keep track of the correct predictions throughout the year, and most goals at the end of the year wins the Golden Boot. Our correct predictions are our goals. So far, Dan, I think you are leading, but let's take a quick accountability session. Nothing for you this week. You had nothing come off the board.
Everything I had was down the road.
Yeah.
Longer term predictions. I don't think I had any. I couldn't have gotten anything this week, could I? No.
Everything was more down the road. You had Loons will make the playoffs and a couple other things. But
Okay, that's good. I'm okay with that then.
Yeah. And then So I had 3 things come off the board. I went back and I didn't see anything all right related, so Matthew McConaughey related during the Minnesota United Austin FC broadcast. I said the Loons will keep a clean sheet this weekend, referring to the Colorado match. They did not, unfortunately.
Look good for half.
Yep. And then I said PSG will come back and beat Man City in the Champions League. Unfortunately, they crashed out in spectacular fashion, not winning at all, and then being pretty chippy later in the match. So far our standings are pretty average, pretty weak right now. You've got
early.
1 goal. You've got 33% correct. I've got no goals and none correct so far.
Yeah.
So let's start our predictions. Dan, you want to start?
I went first last week. You go ahead.
Okay.
What's your first one?
My first one, Emmanuel Reynoso will be involved in at least 3 goals in the next 2 games. So we have 2 games between now and the next broadcast. He will be involved in 3 goals in the next 2 games. That will be a goal or an MLS registered assist. So that's either the assist or, I guess, what you would call a hockey assist. They call it
3 in the next 2 games.
Yep.
Okay, so Wednesday and then Saturday.
Yep.
All right. I don't know.
All right.
That's for a team that's only scored a couple of goals all year. That's a little gutsy. So
got to have some faith somewhere.
All right. I went with, and this may be just me looking for an easy point, but at this point they're 0-4, so there's no easy points. Minnesota United will get a W this week. Write that down. You can laugh.
That's very vague.
You can
I
laugh,
like it.
but I could have said that last week and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
In fact, you did say it. Go back to that other board where you said they'd get a clean sheet.
Yeah.
I just want them to get a win.
That's so vague.
Write that down.
Well,
I was going
funny.
to say they'll get 3 points, but that's the same thing. So
After the match on Saturday, Declan Goff, producer for Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily, texted me, MNUFC will not lose on Saturday. Well, there goes that write that down prediction.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to win a match.
We've got a couple listener predictions today, both from Nick D.
Okay, Nick.
The first one, we'll do his first one here and then his next one in the next round. He said Adrian Heath will be fired or resigns if they lose on Wednesday. So if they lose on Wednesday, so basically they have to lose on Wednesday for this prediction to come true, because if they don't lose and they lose on Saturday and then he fires, then it doesn't count because it's very specific.
And fired or resign have become kind of the same thing now.
Yeah.
Because you hardly ever hear about anybody being fired. You know, they come to a mutual agreement or the coach has stepped down. Well, the coach stepped down because they said, if you don't step down, we're going to fire you. So it's really the same thing.
They make it look dignified at
least. Because I got to tell you, Adrian's not going to step down.
No. And I wouldn't.
I don't know if he'll get fired if they lose Wednesday, but he's not stepping down.
Yeah.
At least not technically. So anyway, okay, well, write that down.
But with the wording, they have to lose on Wednesday, otherwise this prediction will not come true.
Actually, yes, right. So.
All right. My next one, Christian Pulisic will score at least 1 goal in the Champions League final. So him and Zach Steffen will be the first 2 Americans to play in the UEFA Champions League final ever. And so Christian Pulisic playing for Chelsea.
You're calling a goal?
I'm calling a goal. I mean, he scored the first goal in the first leg to get Chelsea to the final, and then had an assist to basically put Real Madrid away in the second leg.
All right.
So he's real good. I think he'll score a goal.
That's gutsy.
Write that down.
Write that down. All right. San Jose will not see the top of the Western Conference standings again this year. Write that down.
Okay. All right.
Because they were in first place last week. Now I think they're 1 point out.
They've been pretty good this season.
They're 1 point out. So obviously,
you know what? The Loons need to play them. Ever since Almeida took over there, Adrian Heath has his number. They always score 4 or 5 goals against them. Loons just need a good match with San Jose. Just make it happen.
I don't care who they play. Anybody.
Just get a win.
Yeah.
All right. The other one from Nick D. Dane St. Clair will lose his starting job by Saturday if the Loons lose on Wednesday. I don't think Dane's played that bad. He had the one bad bounce against Colorado that gave up the equalizing goal, which kind of killed the team's momentum more. But other than that, I don't think he's played that bad.
Are you Here's what I struggle with. If a team's struggling and you take a player and start someone else, does that mean they lost their starting job? I mean,
If it's just for one game, I don't think so. But if it's for multiple games, then
I guess the way he worded it, I think there's a really good chance that Miller could start Wednesday. He could start Saturday. At any point, he could get a start. Why?
Yeah.
Because he's a starting goaltender.
Yep.
He's going to be a starter somewhere. If it's not here in Minnesota, he will be. He's that good. So really, if,
So how do we judge if he loses the job?
I think we just have to go.
On that?
I think all we're doing is saying is if the Loons lose on Wednesday, he's predicting that Tyler Miller will start on Saturday. And
we've talked about that.
I've got no problem with
before.
that. I don't think they're losing because of Dane St. Clair.
No.
But then
we've talked about that situation before.
They didn't start Ethan Finley last week, not because they were losing because of Ethan Finley, because you got to make some changes. You've got to try some different things. So, no, I actually like that one. I think there's a really good chance that if they don't win on Wednesday, I think there's a good chance that there's several lineup changes because
Adrian always makes changes after losses.
And it's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
You're going Wednesday to Saturday. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. I think he's got a real good – let's hope that doesn't come into play because both of his predictions have to do with the team losing on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I don't want to go 0-5. Let's not go 0-5.
No.
Those post-game shows are hard when it's 0-3, 0-4. I can't imagine 0-5.
No. Let's not even go there.
All right, my final one, Juventus, who are currently on the outside looking in on Champions League qualification in Serie A. They will not qualify for Champions League this season despite winning the last 9 Scudettos. They won't win it this year because Inter Milan locked that up this last weekend. I don't think Juventus will qualify.
Okay, Juventus no qualify.
They will not qualify for Champions League this season.
Okay, write that down.
All
right, I wanted to get some points in the books right away on Wednesday.
Okay.
So here's what I'm going. Wednesday, there's 6 MLS matches Wednesday. That includes the Minnesota-Vancouver match, right?
Right.
All right. The road teams will win at least 3.
Oh, interesting.
Write that down.
That's an interesting pick. Got any reasons?
I was bored. No, I was looking at the matchups, and I was looking at the matchups for Wednesday, and I thought, they could win on the road. They could win on the road. I said, we could get 3 wins on the road. And this way, if Minnesota does lose, which I hope they don't, well, then I got a really good chance of getting that point. So
is this just for Wednesday's game, or is this Wednesday and Thursday? Because there's a game on Thursday.
Nope, just Wednesday. There's just 6 Wednesday? Matches Wednesday. Yep, 3 of them will be road wins. Now,
so far on Wednesday. No, go ahead.
That's why. But there'll be a tie in there, and then I'm screwed. So whatever.
I was going to say, I'm looking at these matches. I could see Columbus beating Toronto on the road.
Columbus will win on the road.
Montreal is visiting Miami, but it's really like they're in the same state because Montreal is playing in Orlando, I think.
So to me, I look at that as almost like there's not as much home field advantage in that one. So
I don't think New England's beating Philadelphia in Philadelphia.
Nope, probably not.
Kansas City faces Houston, and it's not the wrong time of year to go down to Houston. It's the good time when it's not
Kansas
blazing
City
hot.
Could win that one.
Vancouver visits Minnesota.
Let's
and then Seattle visits San Jose. 2 top teams in the West.
I'm kind of hoping that Seattle
you could get me right.
This.
You could get this by Columbus, Kansas City, and Seattle.
So listen to this, though. If San Jose does win at home, it'll probably ruin my chances of getting that prediction right. Yeah. And they would move back into first place, which would mess up my second pick. So.
It really would.
Yeah, so I'm kind of banking on San Jose losing, I guess, Wednesday.
There's a lot on the line in that match, I guess.
There is more than I really planned.
You did not realize that. All right, so we're nearing the end of the show. Quick preview of the Vancouver and the Dallas matches because we have 2 matches between now and the next recording. We're talking with a guest, trying to line them up. We will let you know if we have that guest. You can ask them any questions if you want at our Twitter feeds at John Harrison 90 or at Dan Terhaar on Twitter. If you're watching the YouTube feeds, they are our name tags on the stream here. So, quickly, your thoughts on Vancouver, 2-1-1 on the season, and then Dallas as well.
I'm not going to have a lot to give you on Dallas because I can only prepare for 1 match at a time, and I'm focused on Vancouver right now. Vancouver is better than probably we thought.
Yeah.
Or they're playing better right now, which being that they don't have a home field is kind of surprising. Don't you think that'd be extremely difficult?
Oh, it's got to be absolutely difficult. You're asking all these players and coaches to spend time away from their family. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, Thierry Henry, he was the head coach of Montreal, and he left. He decided he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't be away from his family for that long again. Because you asked him to do it last year.
Yeah, and I guess with that in mind, the situation without having a home games technically, and just being disrupted from your whole lifestyle, your family. But then again, when a player comes over here from Brazil, he comes and brings his family, and they have to readjust. So maybe it's not as big a deal as I'm thinking. But what little I've watched of Vancouver play, they're just playing good, sound soccer, up front, in the middle, in the back. So they're just a good team. I don't know if they're a great team, but it shouldn't matter. Minnesota's got to go in with the mindset that we're at home, and this is where we win games. And man, if you're going to end a losing streak, it's probably going to happen at home. So I wasn't overwhelmed by how great Vancouver looks, but yet you look at their record and you're going, wow, they're playing some pretty good teams, and I think they're a better team than we thought. But Minnesota is a better team than they're playing like. So I hope that can add up to that first win of the season on Wednesday. And
hey, Vancouver already have a draw in the year, which is more than they had last year.
Yeah, they didn't have any.
Somehow went last year. They somehow went last year without a single draw, which is astounding.
It was a shortened season, but I mean, that's really unusual. That's
it was either a win or loss for them.
Yeah, so I think this. Let's not be afraid of Vancouver all of a sudden. But at this point, does it really matter who Minnesota's playing? You're 0-4. You've lost to good teams. You've lost to bad teams. You've lost to an expansion team. It doesn't matter who they're playing. They only have to worry about themselves. It doesn't really matter. So for that reason, I mean, I guess just not that concerned about Vancouver right now. All of our concerns are with the home
in-house
team, with Minnesota. Yeah. What are they going to do? And Vancouver, we just hope is the first victim.
Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully we can, we said this last week, we've said this pretty much every week, hopefully we can come back and talk about at least a win, if not two of them, by next Monday night.
Yeah, two of them would change the feel
to 6 points and you're already in playoff contention there.
It would change the feel of things. It would change the attitude. It would, it might get rid of a few hashtags out there. I don't know, probably not.
I don't know, probably not. But, those people are pretty set
Dallas
in their ways.
Is another. I think you prepare and look at Dallas and Vancouver kind of similar. Are they great teams? I don't think so. Are they good teams? Yeah, but we're 0-4. Everybody's good.
Everybody's better than us right now.
We're the worst. I mean, we're the worst record in the league. We're not the worst team in the league. If anybody thinks that, then that's you're entitled to your opinion. But right now, we have the worst record.
That's a clean way of saying it.
We have the worst record in the league right now. So everybody's a challenge.
Yeah.
So Dallas, Vancouver, they're the same. You got to prepare. You got to score goals. You got to play defense, and doesn't matter who you're playing. They got to do that against anybody. So, man, I hope they can get it done this week. 2 wins would change a lot of things.
Yeah, it certainly would. That has been it for the most unofficially official Loons podcast. We like to call it Loon Talk here on Score North and anywhere you find your podcast. You can watch us over on Score North's YouTube channel. Otherwise, anywhere you find your podcasts, find Loon Talk. Just search Loon Talk and tell a friend. You can also rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us get boosted. Dan, it's been good talking to you again. We will see you Wednesday night for Minnesota United versus Vancouver right here on Score North.
It should be a great game. Hopefully they get that first win at home and turn this thing around. What time is our pregame on Score North? Are we a 7:30 pregame?
7:30, 8 o'clock kick. 8 o'clock kick.
I will be there. I will be there, sir.
Good to know.
See you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday, sir.